Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lori Watson and the co-host of Foreplay.
I'm your co-host, George Fowler, former firefighter, your couples therapist who loves to talk about sex.
Woo! Let's discuss everything about the best sexual techniques to building your emotional intimacy, which is really necessary for great sex.
We bring sound, concrete tools to reframe your relationship problems and learn how to fall in love again and feel desire.
Listen to Foreplay Radio on the iHeart app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Marriage Therapy Radio. I'm Zach Brittle. I'm here with Laura Heck. Today we're talking about really one of my favorite things, just as a guy who has an English degree, the idea that words matter and that sometimes the words as they might appear on paper can take on different meanings. So there's always content and there's always context. And we talk about one of my favorite concepts, which is the boring neutral. Before we get started, I'll ask you again to follow us on Instagram at Marriage Therapy Radio. We are trying to build that up. And if you haven't done it already, it'd be a huge help. We're calling it Operation Blue Check. And I think right now there's actually still a giveaway for those of you who are interested in helping. So go ahead and do that. And for now, this is a very cool conversation. Stick around.
I have to tell you something very exciting. 2 things.
Okay, 2 things happened. Yes, go.
Number 1, I signed up for a duathlon.
Right.
That's a big deal.
That's biking and running.
Mm-hmm. So
Okay.
it's kind of like my induction into what it is to be someone who lives in Bend, Oregon, which is like everybody does the outdoor sports and in ridiculous shape. I've never gone to a swimming pool where everybody has abs, not just one big ab, but I'm talking about all the abs.
Yeah.
I mean, Bend is just like ridiculously fit people. So I am going to drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Apparently the calorie-free Kool-Aid, and I'm going to do a duathlon. I'm really excited about it.
You know what? I have a new follower actually on Peloton. So I have no idea who they are, but their code name, is that what it's called? Screen name, I guess? It's like Bend, yes. Oregon. It's like Bend, Oregon. I'm like, okay, great. So I thought, first I thought it was you. And I was like, did you get a Peloton? You didn't even tell me, but it's not you.
No. I wonder. So somebody in my place and where I live enjoys Zach Brittle and is following you.
Right on.
Okay. Number two, I started school. I had my first day of class yesterday.
Okay.
I was really pumped. But here's what I learned. I didn't know that this was a thing. And
this is sex therapy school.
What we are doing this is sex therapy school. And it was fun because I had a guest instructor that I didn't realize was going to be an instructor. And you know what? Her job title is she's called a somatic sex therapist, which I didn't know what a somatic sex therapist was. But here's how she described it. She said, while you are a talk therapist and you talk through sex therapy with your clients, I am a hands-on sex therapist. And she said hands-on and hands-in. And I was like, oh, there is such a thing. And I think
they're called
so
OBGYNs,
to already have my mind blown. No, but you know what? It's interesting. She has a tie between giving birth and sex. There's it's all kind of connected.
They are related.
I think a lot of it has to do with they are related. That's true. But there is such a thing. And as I learn more, I'll continue to share with our audience members. But I get really excited when I think I know what I've kind of reached the end of the internet when it comes to learning certain things or having my mind blown. It was blown yesterday. I'm really pumped to be learning from this instructor. I will not be a somatic sex therapist, because I don't think I can walk that ethically, legally, the line between touching and non-touching my clients and holding a license in marriage and family therapy. But I'm really excited to learn.
So wait a second. On your very first day of class, in your very first program, you had a guest lecturer?
She's not a guest lecturer. She's a co-lecturer that I did not know I was going to have. I thought I was just having one instructor, but I actually have 2.
Okay. So it wasn't like your teacher was like, I'm phoning
it in.
Yeah. I'm sick today.
Yeah. I brought my friend. She's going to tell you everything about her profession that you're not going to actually have as a profession. Anyway.
Yeah, right
and I also here's another thing. I started a new book. Have you heard about, I think it's called Fast Girl. And what it's doing is it's bringing I've already told you my two passions in one, the duathlon and then sex therapy. This book is the combination of the two. So it is about a famous Olympic runner who also was a call girl in Las Vegas. Have you heard this story?
No.
I know. I'm pumped.
Wait a second.
It's called Fast Girl.
And it combines your two favorite things, which are duathlons and sex therapy?
Yeah.
But she's not a sex therapist.
Come on, Zach. Follow the lines. Follow the lines. Okay.
All right. It's probably therapeutic for her to write this book.
It is. And it's well written so far. I'm listening to it and it's pretty interesting. I took the phone into the shower with me today and I was like, I can get a lot done if I listen to all my books in the shower.
Right on.
All right.
Did you want to ask me about Operation Blue Check?
Mm-hmm.
It's going good. It's going good.
Okay.
We almost have 200 people. I'm actually, and our people love us. They love us.
Have you posted anything? Have you posted another post? Okay.
Yeah. I thanked our first 100 followers. So, and then I put something up new. And then today, by the time this comes out, it'll have happened already. But today I'm going to put up a giveaway. I'm going to have a giveaway on Instagram. Is
it a book that you wrote just by question?
I mean, I do happen to have a stack of them to the right.
Okay.
No, but hey, why not, man? I'm just going to strive. I might have a new philosophy, which is I'm going to throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
I like it.
Yeah.
You know that Zach and I are huge fans of getting support, and that is why we have partnered with BetterHelp to put you in contact with licensed professional counselors in your area. Tap into the world's largest network of licensed, accredited, and experienced counselors who can help you with a range of issues, including depression, anxiety, trauma, grief, relationships, and more. With BetterHelp's counselors, you get the same professionalism and quality that you would expect from an in-office counselor, with the ability to communicate when and how you want, whether it be messaging, through the phone, or video conferencing. The matching process is quick but thorough. Look, I know that a lot of therapists are booked out and difficult to get into, but don't let that stop you from getting the support that you need. The cost is less than half of what Zach and I charge, which is kind of unheard of. And when you register with BetterHelp, you are supporting Marriage Therapy Radio. Go to trybetterhelp.com MTR. So it's trybetterhelp.com/MTR to register with BetterHelp. TRYBETTER help, HELP.com/MTR, and you receive a special discount as a Marriage Therapy Radio listener. Here's something that I wanted to talk about today.
Yes.
Because it struck me. I've actually had this happen 2 times in the last week, and I don't know if males, from your perspective, if you experience this, but I have had women that I don't know. So I'm at the pool and I said, "What's going on? How are you doing?" And this is a gal that I'm befriending and trying to get to know. And she kind of unloaded, and her unloading was just this big vent session about her husband. And I must have had some awful look on my face because I wear my heart on my sleeve, because she apologized after she kind of like caught herself and she goes, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I just put you in the weirdest position. I just keep doing this to you. I feel like every time I see you, I'm just in a crummy mood." She says, "I'm on one today." And I was like, "Oh, sister, I know what that feels like." But, it kind of dawned on me the other day that this is happening more and more often. And I wanted to talk to you, and I wanted to talk to the listeners about how toxic it can be to find yourself in that headspace where you are venting a lot and you're talking about your partner, and you might be throwing your partner under the bus. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. But I was kind of curious from your standpoint as a male, does that happen with like your male friends?
No, not especially. I mean, for me, it happens it would almost never happen in the gym, right? If it is, it's a quick joke. Sometimes it might happen in like a like a intimate setting. I mean, you know that me and my mutual friend sometimes have boat nights, and we'll talk about our
right.
And then there's a third guy. We talk about our wives and girlfriends, and that can
Your
sometimes
wags.
turn into
My husband calls that wags.
to
It's a
event
golf
session.
term.
But no, I think women definitely just have more feel more freedom anyway to trust other women in settings like that to kind of get me right. Kind of like you said, you're like, girl, me too. You know, like I think that
Right.
there's not like a bro, me too experience that I have too terribly often.
So when we do the Epic Wives experiment, one of the things that we talk about is how men tend to not have that type of companionship with other men. And women, on the other hand, feel like they could get that support from just about anyone. Like you're sitting on the park bench, you turn to the woman that you don't know who's, feeding a small kid out of a juice box, and you're like, girl, I'm having the worst day. And suddenly you have just entered into a non-paying therapeutic relationship with a stranger at the park bench. And you hold each other and you emotionally hold each other, and you're there and you're supportive, and you feel like I'm not alone in this world. And the reason why we talk about it in the Epic Wives experiment is because that experience is very different for men. And that's kind of what I was gauging for you is I know that you have quality relationships, like deep friendships with your male counterparts, and that you can go deep with them if you ever needed that emotional support. But I know that's not the case for all men. And having somebody to just kind of vent and open up to, because I think that the reason why we do vent is to feel like you're not alone, to feel like you're not crazy, to feel like somebody else gets you. And personally, I think that's what's going on.
100%. I think that there's a reasonable expectation that feeling alone can sort of foster that feeling, even if it's not real. Like you can be together and also feel lonely. Like I think that's definitely true. And I do belong to a couple of more sort of tertiary men's communities, and that's just how I would describe them. And one of the centerpieces of even just the notion of belonging there is that isolation is a killer. And isolation is a killer, especially for men. Men have this kind of pretty famous cliche around the idea of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like everybody else has it together except for me. So I better pretend I have it together, when really you're in a room full of people who also feel exactly the same way. Like they look at me, maybe Zach, and they're like, oh gosh, what a handsome, successful, smart, great marriage guy,
Great head of hair.
Anything else?
Beautiful tan.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting there going, man, I don't have it together. And if they only knew, and gosh, I don't have, where are my abs? I mean, I could never live in Bend and did blah, blah, blah. Like I have the whole thing going on that just kind of is, secretly the same as everybody else. So I appreciate that about how women sometimes can turn to this, turn to somebody I started playing soccer this week with a team I've never met before. Brand new team, just that another friend of mine asked me to join, and I got there early and he wasn't there, my buddy. So I was there, and I didn't know any of the other guys that I was about to go play soccer with. And I just sat there. I did not say one word. I didn't say, hi, nice to meet you, or, hey, how did you guys get together? Or what's your name? I just was like, it's so, we don't have those situations. I mean, we were put in situations like that as a kid. Like my kid's going to a new summer camp just about every week just so that I can work, right? Like childcare. And he's in situations where he's the new kid all the time. But I mean, think about it. How often are we put in situations as adults where we're the new person and we don't know anybody in the room? I mean, that's rare these days. Yeah, that's why I like therapy, because I'm the old person in the room, because it's my room and people are coming to see me. And so I get to be like, hey,
you get to be the host.
I get to run the rules. I do want to talk about a little bit of, I think, what you're describing though. Sometimes where I do hear people rant is in my office, right? Of course, like people come in and their husband, wife might be right there and they're venting.
Right.
So a couple of episodes ago, maybe 30 or so, we talked about how conversations become problematic when you don't know who you're talking to, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know why you're talking about it, and you don't know who is talking to who. And so I've been saying this a lot to clients, and I don't want to rehash that, but basically some of my clients have started to say, hey, who are you talking to? Like, who do you like, what's happening here? Because, again, you can be talking to somebody who's in a high stress situation. You can be talking to somebody who's still in work mode. you know, you could talk to say who's in mom mode. And if you're not talking to sort of my functional adult partner that I love, then that conversation is going to go problematically, you know, especially if like, let's just say it's you and me talking right now and you've got Holden like tugging on your skirt or your shirt. And I'm like, hey, I really need to ask you this really serious question. And I'm not respectful of the fact that you're like in mom mode. Maybe he's even like legit, like he's sick or something. You're going to be like, Zach, chill, like, hold on. Can't you see that this is, and that, and then the conversation that I'm trying to have about solving a problem isn't going to get solved because whatever. Okay.
I think we had that interaction, FYI, over the last couple of weeks where you're like, hey, were you ever going to respond to my email? Hey, where, like, can you please just answer the questions? Like, hey, and I like exactly what was going on. I'm like, hey, I'm in like head underwater mode and I'm going to come out and I'm going to take a big deep breath and then I'll be able to respond to you. But that's not going to happen for another 2 weeks. So, I mean, this is okay. Yes. All right, whatever. This is our perpetual problem. We're not going to air it out right now, but let's just talk about where I was. Okay. Here's where I'm headed with this. Okay. So let's say, for example, that this couple is in the conversation. It's not going well. And one of them wants to check in and say, I want to make sure that our two functional adults are talking to each other. Let's just say they want to level set. And this is the word that comes out of their mouth. Who are you talking to? Okay. WHOAREYOUTALKINGTO. Who are you talking to? Here's the thing that I'm checking in with a lot in my office. And maybe you do this at the pool, maybe you don't, but there's a big, big difference between who the fuck do you think you're talking to? And wait a second, hold on a second. Let me just make sure that I'm here as a functional adult because I want to make sure that you're talking to me, the person you love and respect, right? That the words, who are you talking to? There's such a gigantic range between kind of saying that in a complainy, snarky, contemptuous way and, hey, let's check in together about our mutual thing. And I think that range exists all the time. So I think you're going to be late to the party. Could be, well, I think you're just going to be late to the party. Versus, hey, if you try to add that extra thing, I think you might be late to this party. Okay. And you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a gigantic range. And often I'll stop couples in the middle and I'll say, hey, do you know what you just said? And they'll say, I said, who are you talking to? I go, yeah, but did you say, who the heck do you think you're talking to? Or did you say, hey, are you talking to me, the husband that loves and respects you? Right. You know? And he'll say, I was saying the latter. And I'll turn to her and I'll say, what did you hear? She goes, oh, I definitely heard the former. And I'm like, that's a thing. That's a problem. So, I mean, this brings something, this is totally diverging a bit from the original topic. And I think we should loop back around to talk about that. But it does bring to mind this. I've wanted to point this out to a client of mine and sometimes, you know, I have to pick and choose when I think they're going to be responsive to that feedback. And the thing that I want to point out is, hey, you know, every time you use your partner's name, do you realize the way that it sounds, the tone that you use? And my husband did it to me the other day where, I didn't tell you this. I'm thinking about that text I sent. You sent me a question that you knew the answer to because I told you the answer like 4 times. And you're like, what is you're like, and what did I type back? Something Laura. You said blah, blah, Laura, blah, period. Elizabeth, period. Heck, period. Do you know how that sounded? I am in trouble. Yeah, I knew exactly how it sounded. And my husband does it too. Anytime he actually calls me by my name, I know that he's frustrated, he's irritated. But imagine that every time your partner uses your name, calls you by your name, it has a tone, it has an irritation. And I'm like, just an absolute awful way to connect when the tone that your partner is using whenever they call you by your name is awful. And so I think I'm going to point this out to this particular client that I've never heard her refer to her partner in a loving, warm, empathetic, gracious way whenever using his name. Yeah, but I mean, it's another really great example of how like the words need to be understood and agreed upon, right? So let's just say your name is Tom, right? Like if I call you Tom, that maybe I'm trying to communicate one thing. If I call you Tommy, maybe that's something else. Thomas is something else. You know, like I think there's a thing that we need to be aware of. It makes me think about
I can never remember who wrote this. I think I've decided I invented this, but I don't think I actually did. But it's this idea that we talk about a lot, like the boring neutral. And the boring neutral is literally the script. It's just the script as it's written on paper. Take any argument you've ever had or any conversation you've ever had and just write it out. Like just he said, she said, or she said, whatever it is. Then hand it to two different directors. One director is really good at directing rom-coms. One director is really good at directing, thrillers or something.
Okay.
The exact same scene goes differently based on the lens of the person talking. And I think this is where, like, I do this in my office all the time. I'm like, hey, what if we directed this scene as though it's between two people who loved and respected each other and who really valued each other's opinion?
Yeah.
Does Tom become Tommy? Like, does the ad lib, does Tom, or let's say it's a thriller, does it become Thomas? Like, or, a hardcore drama or whatever. I think that there's something to be said for checking in with sort of who's directing the scene, right? Inside your marriage, But yeah, I think particularly your name, right? Your name is so powerful. Like your name ought to be a term of endearment.
Yeah.
But don't we all have these stories too? Like, I call my daughter by her full name when I need her
you're upset,
correct her behavior, So
yeah, we almost never in our household use each other's real names. It is always a nickname. It's always a term of endearment. And so when the real name comes out, that it's that you're in trouble. Like your partner's getting your attention. And you're not the only one, by the way, that uses periods to really get my attention. Laura, period. Elizabeth, period. Heck. Okay, so let me bring this back because I think what you said was interesting, and it sort of goes back to the story with the gal at the pool who was frustrated with her husband, and for the second or third time interacting with this new person that I don't know very well. But
I'm assuming she has abs.
She has. How did you know she has abs?
Because you just told me everyone at the pool has abs, not just one ab.
Everyone at the pool has abs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I might have a service where I'm going to start painting abs on people who don't have abs. Anywho.
I think that's called Photoshop.
Yeah. The gal at the pool with the great abs venting. I mean, one of the things is maybe just imagine yourself with this script, and you can say the same words, but you can say it in a different way. And it could be a lot of like having the choice that you can be internally frustrated. And I think that there's something to be said about venting and feeling like, hey, I've got a lot of pressure building up and I really just need that emotional support, but also kind of checking in with yourself and recognizing that you have the ability to read this script in a very different way. And that script could be, boy, I'm pretty exasperated. I'm pretty overwhelmed right now. And I kind of feel like I want to direct some of that frustration onto my husband. And I know that it's probably not the best thing to talk about my husband in this way. And I've already vented to you about him a few times. So maybe I'll just leave it at that. I'm really frustrated today. I do want to ask your opinion though. How do you feel about venting about your partner to people outside of the relationship?
Okay, I'll answer that question, but let me just say, I think that's a really, really great intervention that you've sort of stumbled onto. Like, I think even if it's at the pool, great. I think it's a little bit presumptuous, of course, to be like, hey, I have this cool intervention. What if you said it in a different way? I mean, you'd have to earn the right to say that through your friendship, but in our offices, for sure. Like, I mean, I don't know why on earth we wouldn't just stop people and go, hey, do me a favor. That thing you just said, say it one more time, but pretend like you're in a rom-com. And just see if it comes out differently. And then the real question is to the partner who's being spoken to, did you hear it differently? Because I think when we speak with a different part of our brain or voice, we allow others to listen with a different part of our brain or voice. And that's really what we're trying to accomplish, right? Is to let people feel heard. And like, I don't have to do two things at once. I don't have to defend myself.
Right.
And hear you at the same time. Right. Because if I'm doing those two things at the same time, I'm almost 100% concentrating on defending myself.
Yeah.
Which means whatever you're saying is just, the signal to noise ratio is pretty low.
I think that right there is kind of like the peak of everything that we're kind of getting at is if there's something important for you, to communicate, try doing it in just a totally different way. Imagine yourself with a script of what you've always said, but this time just try it using a different director. Someone who's, doing the rom-com or doing a comedy or doing like something maybe dramatic. Like if you have a hard time communicating your needs at all, maybe just try like being dramatic and being like, oh, I'm exhausted from my day. I just need someone to cook for me. And I bet that if I never communicate my needs, my partner's going to hear that differently than they ever have before.
Totally.
And it might be kind of fun.
When I talk about, criticism, one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the antidote for criticism is learn how to ask for what you need, right? I've added a part of it, which is learn how to ask for what you need in a way that your partner can hear.
Totally.
Like you have to add that second part, because you can get really great at saying, hey, Ryan, I really need you to cook for dinner because or whatever. And if he can't hear that,
right,
then you need to find another way. And it might even be, it's Tuesday. And he goes, oh, yep, Tuesday is the day I cook. That's the way that he can hear, whatever it is. To your other question about how do I feel about venting about your partner, 100% context matters there. I vent about my partner a lot to my therapist. And I do it for the purpose of trying to make sense of the dynamic in my home and the role that I can play in trying to shift that dynamic. Okay. It is... And that's okay. That's 100% okay. And that is the right way to vent about your partner. I never vent about my partner to you or to other people who Shirley Glass would say would be, what do they call it?
An alternative,
because that's the beginning of, creating a triangulation or a bond that doesn't help you draw nearer to your primary attachment. And I think, so venting, I think it just needs context. Right. And so if you need to vent because you're unhappy or unsatisfied, or rather, let's put it this way. If you're unhappy or unsatisfied and venting will help you draw near, it's really about finding the appropriate context for that.
Okay. So that's what you just said is venting going to allow you to draw near? Is venting like venting with your therapist, where your therapist starts to point out some blind spots? Hey, have you considered, this, and this? Because if you had considered that, I bet you probably would feel differently or more empathetic towards your partner. Boom. Sure. I draw nearer to my partner. The other one that we haven't, so you let's see here, a positive alternative, and I forget the terminology, but it's basically if you're venting to someone, like let's say a hot coworker that's kind of going
the barista,
back to,
or whatever, like the guy
and
from
you're
work
like,
that last week.
Last episode. So you got your hot coworker and now you're venting to your hot coworker about your partner. Maybe your coworker brings these amazing lunches to work and you're like, oh my gosh,
my husband
so
never
good.
cooks.
Exactly. My partner never cooks. He's never picked a kitchen tool up in his life. Then you're going down that slippery slope. The other thing that we've talked about is if you are going to vent to a friend of the marriage. So if you
I like that one.
Right? Like you're talking to our mutual friend, you know that he is a friend of the marriage and that he's going to hold space for you and say, boy, that really sucks. I'm sorry that you're struggling with that. But he's also not going to put down your wife and say, man, I think it's probably time to ditch her and go for somebody.
Totally.
Go find yourself a younger model.
Yeah, she sucks. Have you thought? Yeah, totally. Yeah. Reminds me of a Ben Folds song.
Which makes me think that perhaps the reason why this gal has vented to me is that maybe she finds me to be someone that's safe. That might be,
Sweet.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Just bring it back to me, Zach.
No, it is sweet. I think that you are safe. And I didn't bring it back to you. You did. But I think that that's exactly right. Like she, I know for sure that in a social setting, in a public setting, that you are warm and approachable. And I'm sure she gathered that as well. And it's a good thing that she's doing that in the sort of safety of that moment versus, all the other options that she had to choose from. So,
yeah. All right. Well, let's, we bounced around. Listeners, I hope that out of all of the things that we were talking about today, that you found some nugget that maybe you can use in your relationship, whether it be, like choosing to play a scene out with a different director, using a different tone, paying attention to whether or not you're venting or talking poorly about your partner, the impact that that might have on the relationship. What else do we cover?
Well, ultimately, words matter, right? And I think the text themselves, the text itself is important, and we need to pay attention. But more important is the context. I think is the main takeaway for me, anyway.
Okay, well, let's land this plane. What do you say?
Okay, see you later.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Marriage Therapy Radio. And sometimes I like to throw in at the very end a dad joke just to see if my buddy Zach is ever listening to these episodes. Hey, what did the fisherman say to the magician? Pick a card, any card. Hey, if you are looking for some support, maybe it feels like a good time for you to start therapy or get back into therapy. I have heard from a lot of people recently that it is very difficult to get into their normal therapist. They are booked out for months. That is no joke. Zach and I are very busy. That is why we have partnered with BetterHelp. If you haven't gone to betterhelp.com/MTR yet, just check it out. It is a really amazing way to connect with a therapist virtually and communicate with them in the way that you want to, whether it be through messaging, video conferencing, telephone. The matching process is quick and thorough, and we really believe in this service to be able to offer to all of our national and international clients. So check out trybetterhelp.com/MTR. Thanks for all of your time and attention, making your relationship better today than it was yesterday.